At the outset of my career, working for a Fortune 500 company, one of the things that amazed me about that global leader is the training program that they had in place. Or should I say lack of training program. They handed me a pen, a piece of paper, and a bunch of business cards the day I started and said, go out and make it happen, you got 1 month. And if you can't do it, we'll find somebody else who will. So it's been my mission from that day forward to acquire the skills and knowledge that I would need to be able to teach other professionals so they wouldn't have to go through what I went through. And that has been the catalyst of my speaking and my training career for the last 5 years. So I don't know about everybody in the room, but I'm seeing a major problem in today's business community. And what that problem is, it relates to people getting back to people in a timely fashion. I'm seeing roughly 4 or 5 days it's taking for people to get back to me. And this is when I'm trying to give them business. As an example, recently I held the CD release party. I called 10 people, and here it is, 4 and 5 days later, and I've only heard back from 2. This is when I'm trying to give them business. So yes, this is a problem. I think it's a problem. But here's some good news. There's a way we can profit from this. If you look at today's great leaders, one of the things that they almost all have in common, almost without exception, is that they're all great communicators. So that's a skill I think you should focus on. But there's one thing that you need to know. When it comes to communication, it's not just about what's coming out of your mouth. Hi, my name is Corey. I sell stuff. Do you buy stuff? That was my first call. Could have went a little smoother, I think. And I'm not so sure my next 2 calls were any better, to tell you the truth. But you know what? That's a part of the process. It's a part of growing. You know, I just moved out there. I was 19 years old. Rockstar. Well, at least that's how I felt about myself. So this gentleman, he sent me an email. And in the email, he actually said, don't insult my intelligence. I've never met you before in my life. But here's the best part. The word intelligence, spelled wrong. So to answer your question, yes, emails, they do leave a lasting impression. If the email that you're working with, if it relates to a productive task, something that has to be done right now, then yes, I think the email is a positive. But if you're working on something that really shouldn't be handled during this time of day, then I honestly believe the email is a negative, and really you shouldn't be focusing on it right now. You should be focusing on something else. You know, I was that guy. I was the guy who wasn't supposed to make it. I was the guy who was told he was going to get fired if he didn't start producing. I was that guy. I was the guy who went into the calls and I was nervous, you know, heart beating out of my chest. That guy. That's who I was. And the truth is, what I'm trying to say here is these skills, they can all be learned. I mean, here I am now going to speak to crowds, and I was scared of public speaking, scared to death. I was that guy. But you can learn these skills, and that's what I want to impart to you today, is I want to impart that you can learn to become a peak performer. So I'm driving down the road, and all of a sudden I see this hitchhiker. So the question becomes, do I pick up the hitchhiker? And, you know, I wanted to pick up this hitchhiker because I wanted to be nice, and I felt bad for him. It was sort of misty out, I just felt bad for this guy. But then I realized he was a little sketchy looking, so I just wasn't sure. I take a close look. I look at his sign. It says Halifax. And then it occurs to me, Halifax is 10 minutes away. Am I going to risk my life for 10 minutes? No. But it brings up a good question. Why do you think that most people don't pick up hitchhikers?
Security, the unknown.
It's a good, exactly, fear of the unknown. I think it's the fear of the unknown. And really, when it comes down to it, that's the reason that most people have fears. Why do you think that people are scared to do stand-up comedy? Fear of the unknown. Why do you think that most people are scared to do cold calls? Fear of the unknown. So really, when you think about it, how do I overcome that fear? You plan. You know, when it comes to comedy, you plan for how am I going to deal with a heckler when they yell something up to the stage. When it comes to business, you plan that. When it comes to sales, how am I going to deal with this person when I walk through the door of a cold call? You just plan for how am I going to deal with their objections. So really, when it comes right down to it, if you want to overcome fears, plan for the possible outcome and there won't be an unknown anymore. So eventually, he called me into his office. And he called me in after I've been calling him for a year. So I thought, you know what? There's a good chance I'm going to get a punch in the mouth. Well, I know one thing's for sure. I wasn't going to get a hug. But I said, you know what? I got to go anyway. I got to find out really what the circumstance is here. So I go into his office, sit in front of him, and he tells me the only reason he didn't call me back is because he wasn't ready to buy anything yet. From that day forward, I literally sold this person 7 units. I mentioned earlier they had 12 offices. So I actually replaced more than half of their fleet within 6 months, 7 months. And for the first year, he never even called me back. So what's the message here? Peak performers understand the benefit of staying the course. I knew that then.
The thing that impresses me about Corey is that although he's young, he has a tremendous amount of experience to draw on. The advice and knowledge that he passes along is not just theoretical, it's actually tested by him firsthand. I find him also to be quite a dynamic and enthusiastic presenter, and any time I've ever listened to Corey, I've always found it to be a very valuable experience, and I've always had an enjoyable time as well.
When I first heard Corey speak, I was so impressed that I decided to take one of his workshops. I later decided to hire him as a keynote speaker for a networking event that I was hosting. Corey's presentations are not only educational, but they're also very fun. He has a very unique way of adding a real-life element to his presentations that makes it much easier to understand and relate to the information being presented. As a business person, it is very important for me to get a return on my investment, and with Corey, I always know I will.
So she was the only person that followed up. And here I am hiring for an aggressive sales role, where I want the person to follow up with customers. She knew that. She got that. And I looked at that. I looked at that from the outside in and said, you know what? I interviewed 20 people. She's the only person that followed up. And the funny part is, the rest of those people, when I called them back to tell them they didn't get the position, they didn't know why. They couldn't understand it. There's another message you can take from this. Peak performers do what nobody else will.